Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the IDP show. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. That is my co-host, Scott Bogman, and it's you, and that's right. You've asked for it, and well, now you've got it. An IDP show for you, for our Fantasy Pros family. And for some of you out there, you'll say, well, I don't like IDP, I don't play IDP, I don't care, but it's not for you. No. This is for those crazy people like me and Scotty B who absolutely love the challenge of the other side of the ball. And the other side of the ball is defense, and it is fun, and we love it. And we always say, just try it. You just might like it. And once you try it, usually, I feel like you never go back. So today we're going to talk about the rankings. We're going to go through the positions here that Scott Bogman has. And once again, this is a brand new podcast offering here at Fantasy Pros. And I just want to let everybody know it is going to be for our pro subscribers and above. So it's not the highest tier. It is the pro subscriber tier after today. So today we're going to give you the preview. We're going to give it to you. But during the season, it is going to be for our pro subscribers only. So my suggestion to you all is go to fantasypros.com/offers, and all you got to do for $10, you can play on Underdog, FanDuel, DK, any of our friends and our providers there, and you can upgrade to the Hall of Fame subscription. That's right. A free Hall of Fame subscription for 6 months. That's a $65 value, and it only costs you $10 to do it. And then guess what? You also get the IDP show. Scott Bogman, I cannot tell you how happy I am to have you here on this show with me. We've done literally thousands of shows over the last 6 years together, and that is not hyperbole, folks. That is true. And there's nobody I'd rather be doing this one with. You do the IDP write-ups for the Fantasy Black Book every year. You also host some IDP shows over at In This League and a few other places. So, man, I'm just so happy that finally the other side of the ball is getting some love.
That's right. You know, maybe it's because I started playing fantasy when I was like 13 years old with baseball. But I always thought it was weird that you drafted a full team defense, because to me that'd be like drafting a full pitching staff. Like you just take the Braves. That's a whole half of the field that you're just leaving out there. So I never really liked it. I've always been an IDP person. It's my preferred way to play. And I think when you take, it's just like when you take a sleeper running back or a low-rated wide receiver or tight end or whoever, and they make it and you get to rub it in everybody's face. You get to do that on the whole other side of the ball. No one's doing that when they take the Bucs defense. Yeah, the Bucs defense is great. You know, they're pretty good. But when you take JPP and he racks you up 3 sacks in a game and you win because of that, it's a better feeling. You appreciate both sides of the ball more in fantasy terms, and it's a lot of fun. And you can start low. This is what I always tell people when they're trying to dabble. Start with just 3. 1 defensive lineman, 1 linebacker, 1 defensive back. Try that, and then expand it next year into more if you like it, and I'll tell you guys this, that 90% of the people that decide to go IDP for just a year never go back. So try it and see if you like it. And if you don't, you can always go back to stupid team defense after that.
Well, and look, we'll talk maybe a little streaming defenses as well on the show. We'll try to get to all of that as well. But today's about the preview for those of you who are playing in IDP leagues or even thinking about it. I'm in 4 myself this year, one of which I co-manage a 16-team, actually it's a 32-team dynasty league with copies. So it really is kind of more like a 16-team IDP league. It's nuts. It's a dynasty league. It's insane. So Bogman and I do that together. But we're going to be here together because we're passionate about this, and we want to kind of continue to push this narrative. It wasn't that long ago where people were like, Superflex, what's that? And I kept pounding the table with some good friends of mine. And now here we are 5-6 years later, and it's starting to become like the new standard, the new fun. And I hope IDP might potentially be that as well. And you mentioned
IDP also takes away, a lot of people say, well, it's, who got injured, who had the least injured team.
Right.
This takes away from that too. So, because you have to play both sides of the ball, and you can make up some of those points for your injured players with really good defensive players.
And I'll tell you what, Box, I think when you're looking at it as well, you understand that JPP performance you were talking about, right? Or that Aaron Donald performance, it changes that game. So why shouldn't it change your game in fantasy perspective too? Like it does on the bigger scale, but it's Aaron Donald doing it. Like, it's that guy doing it. It's those big dogs doing it, those individual defensive players. So let's start
you take
here.
a team defense, you're at the will of whoever their worst player is.
Yeah.
So, if you draft the Vikings defense, if Bashaud Breeland gives up 3 touchdowns, it's the same as Donnell Hunter giving up 3 touchdowns. So that's why I like IDPs too.
He doesn't do that. That's why he's great. All right, so let's get after it. We're going to start here with the tiers, and we're going to start with the defensive line, which typically there's a big drop off. And like everything, it's all about the scoring. Make sure if you do an IDP league, I know Boggs, you've laid out scoring before in the Black Book and other places. There's lots of just generic IDP settings for scorings that you can go ahead and make it very easy for yourself. But I always like to address the defensive line first, because to me, there's just less great talent there, and then as you continue to move back, you get a lot more of it, and typically speaking, the linebackers, you can find a lot more point scorers because they can rack up tackles and points in other ways. But let's talk about that first tier that you've got here, Boggs, and you start here with 6 players on the defensive line. You got Myles Garrett at 1, Chase Young, too, who's just, I cannot wait to watch Chase Young play football more this year. I am just such a huge fan of his. Nick Bosa at 3, Joey Bosa at 4. Clearly is going to be some arguing at Thanksgiving there between the two of them. Aaron Donald at 5 and DeForest Buckner at 6. So talk to me about this tier, these first 6 guys on the D-line, and why you have them ranked this way.
Yeah, my tier's a little deeper at the top here than most rankers tiers. Most of the time, it's like a mix of Garrett, Young, Donald at the top here. The reason I have Donald a little bit lower is because he's still a defensive tackle. And if you watch some of these games, I mean, you watched the Seattle game last year, he was getting triple, quadruple team. Yeah. Like, some teams are just saying, Aaron Donald will not beat us. We'll put 4 dudes on him if we have to. He ain't going to be the guy that beats us. So occasionally, because you have that type of a matchup, that makes the defensive tackles a little bit less valuable. But I mean, that just shows you how amazing Aaron Donald is and what he's been able to do in his NFL career, because he's still draftable that high. He still racks up tackles. He still gets more sacks than everybody, facing double teams on every single snap that he plays. So he's a great player. But I mean, Garrett and Young are just, they're the premier pass rushers in the NFL right now. I would put TJ Watt in here, but TJ Watt doesn't qualify in most formats as a end. He's a linebacker. Right. A lot of leagues are going to edge, so that would change him a little bit. That would move him up, but he, for what he scores for a typical IDP league, he's a middling linebacker. He'd be a high-end defensive end. So
while we're on it, do you approve of the edge versus?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if that's the way you want to go, that is fine. I think most, like your Yahoo and your ESPN, most of the time are going to have it separated between.
Well, literally before the show, I did a draft, and Watt is a linebacker. Like, that's where he's at.
Well, he plays off of the line as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. So, and that's what he will get paid for as well, is as a linebacker and not an end. So, Garrett and Young are just irreplaceable here. I mean, Myles Garrett is one of the top players in the NFL. Everybody knows that. 12 sacks last year. Chase Young in a shortened season, 7.5 for him. But these guys still rack up tackles. I mean, 48 tackles for Garrett total, 44 for Chase Young last year. And then, you bump down to the Bosas, and I have these guys below those two, both better. It's better to have an edge rusher and end than an interior guy, of course. So that's why I have these guys above Donald and Buckner, but they're both a little banged up. The Bosa boys have been banged up in their career, as TJ Watt and JJ Watt have both been banged up a little bit as well, but not to the level of the Bosa. So I have them slightly below, but still averaging huge points, putting up big numbers, both of them. And then I have the tackles in Donald and Buckner, who just, Aaron Donald, 13.5 sacks last year. And once again, facing double, triple teams. Buckner averaged more points per game than him with 9.5 sacks, just because he got more tackles. And, these are the top of the defensive line rankings. These are your top guys.
All right, let's go to the next guy. Starts with Leonard Williams, who actually I have paired with Aaron Donald on one of those teams together on the D-line, so loving that. Brian Burns of Carolina. Then you have Jason Pierre-Paul from Tampa. J.J. Watt in Arizona. He is number 10, so that's your top 10 guys. Then Hunter from the Vikings at 11, and Quinnen Williams from the Jets at 12. So serious talent here. We'll see J.J. Watt in a new place in Arizona this year. That should be fascinating to see. But look, this is a very talented group as well. Hunter coming off an injury, obviously, last year too. So what are your thoughts on this tier 2 grouping?
Yeah, Hunter is really a guy that he had to earn his way up to this group. I did not move him up here. If you take a look at the original Black Book, I was way lower on Hunter because he's coming off of a spinal injury. You know what I mean? So that should scare people. But the more I've watched him practice and play and heard good reports about him, the higher he has to move up. Because, I mean, if you just look at average points per game and your regular, standard scoring, he averaged more points than anybody else in his last full season, 9.84 points a game. No defensive lineman averaged over 9 points last year. So he definitely has that potential. Leonard Williams has really turned his career around, leaving the Jets and going to the Giants and becoming that type of guy. I thought he was going to be a J.J. Watt type. Obviously never got to that level, but he is very, very good as a 3-4 end. Brian Burns with just an incredible season last year, and he has Hassan Reddick on the other side of him this year, which should get him off of some double teams, which should lead for a big year for him. JPP is just constantly underrated.
He is. You're 100% right.
He goes late in drafts. People think he's a goofball because of the fireworks thing, but the skill is there. And if you're
still there,
how many times are the Bucks going to be up so many points? And he is going to be able to pin his ears back and get after that quarterback. I love JPP. And then J.J. Watt, probably more of a rotational player, but we're looking at those big plays for him, and we know what he can do. And Quinnen Williams is another defensive tackle that is a stud. Not many here. I mean, in years past and after those three guys, really, there's just not going to be a lot of tackles that I give love to because the worst part about having to have tackles is that occasionally you will get a donut from them unless they are the Aaron Donalds, Buckners, Quinnen Williams, guys like that.
And that's why I address it early. Like I said, it's a combination of me. If
you're team fighting on the for it for the rest of the year if you don't get it.
Well, and the drop-off is considerable. So for me, it's Aaron Donald and Williams, Aaron Donald and, well, actually either one. It's either Leonard Williams or Quinnen Williams typically is what I've ended up with this year, along with Aaron Donald. And then it allows me to kind of step back a little bit. Linebacker is more of an embarrassment of riches. There's a lot of guys you can get by with. There's obviously a top tier as them. We'll get to them in a second. Let's finish out the rest of these guys here through 20. So 13 through 20, DeMarcus Lawrence, Stefan Truitt. Tweet is the correct. It is Tuitt.
Stefan Tuitt.
Stefan Tuitt, yeah. Sam Hubbard, and then we have Cameron Jordan, Montez Sweat, Max Crosby, Josh Allen. Anybody here in this grouping you think can jump a tier year over year?
I not really. So this tier to me is I've seen it before, and I think I'm going to see it again. That's kind of what I have your. I think the next tier, if you're talking about jumps, I would maybe go, down to like a Yannick Ngakoue and move him up. Chris Jones from Kansas City is going to play a little more end as well as tackle this year, and he is obviously a stud, especially, anytime you can get a guy that qualifies at tackle that's going to play end, it's a positive in your favor. I might actually end up moving him up a little bit, but these are steady Eddies, man. This whole group, Lawrence, Tuitt, Hubbard, they're barely ever going to give you a donut. They are going to rack up some tackles, and you want him to get that sack. Romeo Okwara is in there as well. Cam Jordan, we've seen do it a bunch of times. Montez Sweat is the guy playing on the other side of Chase Young, so he's going to see one-on-one matchups. If they're going to chip, they ain't going to chip to Sweat. They're going to chip to Young. So
that's the guy that I would circle that has the opportunity to jump. And
he's young too.
He deflects so many passes too. So depending on that scoring too, if that's something that you get extra points for. I mean, that's another thing about Sweat. The pass is defended too. That's something that Sweat is the one guy in this grouping that I think for that same reason you said. Sometimes when all the attention goes to the one guy, somebody else is free, and that guy could be Montez Sweat. All right, let's switch gears to the linebackers here, and let's talk about Darius Leonard at the top. Again, this is Bogman's first tier at linebacker. Devin White of Tampa, coming off a great season there for him. Bobby Wagner, Seattle, still getting it done. Roquan Smith is at number 4. Blake Martinez at 5. Zach Cunningham of the Houston Texans at 6. Tremaine Edmonds of Buffalo at 7. And Fred Warner of San Fran at 8. An outstanding group, no doubt about that. I can't argue with the order either that you got them in. I have Leonard, White, Wagner, too, as my top 3. Look, a great grouping, right? So how do you approach this top tier? Are you somebody that would reach for Leonard or White, or would you wait a little while and maybe take Edmonds and a Warner, or Edmonds and somebody else higher in the tier 2?
Yeah, what I've considered doing a couple times is making Leonard and White their own tier, and I think that's
they
fair.
are. I think.
If you want to do that, I guess the thing here is Devin White. We want repeatability after what he did last season as a leading scorer and all that stuff. Just being amazing. Also, I think 3 or 4 of those sacks came in one game for him. He had 9 last year. So it's repeatability for Devin White, which is why I have Darius Leonard ahead of him. I don't think he is as big play dependent. He only had 3 sacks last year. He had 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, but he has missed time. He had 14 games played last year, fewer than that the year before. He's had a couple ankle issues and everything, but I mean, the dude is just a tackling machine. He is out there racking up stats every single week he's on the field. He's amazing. So if you want to put those two in their own tier, I get it. But Bobby Wagner is so consistent. He's done it every single year. Roquan has been consistent since coming in, over 130 tackles, almost 140 for him last year.
That's why if you address the D-line first, if you miss out on the top tier linebackers, you're still potentially going to get somebody very good in a 12-team league.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, these guys are we've seen them do it before, and they're going to keep doing it. I think Tremaine Edmonds can take a step up this year. Fred Warner, I was a little down on Fred Warner last year and questioning him because Quan Alexander had put up a decent amount of points with him on the field, but Fred Warner proved me wrong. Tremaine Edmonds is great, and Zach Cunningham is Zach Cunningham had over 160 total tackles last year. I mean, the dude is a machine, and he should be on the field a ton in Houston because they are not good.
All right, the next tier here, a few players, 9 through 12. Deion Jones of Atlanta, Joe Schobert of Pittsburgh, Demario Davis, who finds himself on my team so often from the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I just love Demario Davis.
He goes so late. He's so underrated.
So late. He's so underrated every year in IDP leagues. And I'm like, yeah, okay. If you're going to let me have Davis, I'm going to take him. He's just going to get a bunch of tackles and be good. And then number 12, Patrick Queen of the Baltimore Ravens. And I remember when the Ravens selected him, as a Steelers fan, you were pissed, but you had great respect for the choice. And you said, man, that is a really good pick where they got him. That is a steal. And it was absolutely a steal indeed. Patrick Queen coming off a very good season for the Baltimore Ravens. So this one, once again, I mean, solid value here, Davis and Queen especially.
Yeah, shorter tier here too, because these are guys, Deion Jones has had some injury stuff in his past, played all 16 last year though, so we're very happy about that. Schobert just moved from Jacksonville to Pittsburgh, so that's interesting because he has Bush next to him there too, and presumably he's going to get the communicator helmet, the green dot, which means that guy plays on passing downs and in sub packages and all that stuff too, because he is calling plays. Now, Patrick Queen is interesting in that because Chuck Clark, the safety for the Ravens, is the guy with the communicator helmet, which is not usually the what happens. Usually the middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense, and they get that communicator. But for the Ravens, it is Chuck Clark. I guess they just don't want Queen to have that responsibility. LJ Fort, who was going to kind of play with him and Malik Harrison in sub packages, did blow out his knee the other day, so he is not going to be playing this year. So that's going to make Queen and Harrison that much more important to this Ravens defense, and it thins out the depth a little bit. So he should stay on the field a little bit more. And like we said, man, Demario Davis. I mean, I have him at 11. You're hard pressed to find him as an LB1 on a lot of other spots, and he definitely is not drafted as that, and he plays like it every single year.
I know, it's stunning, dude, and I'm glad you agree because I feel like I was on an island about Davis, and I just every year, there he is, up. I guess I'll just have to put him on my roster, and that's exactly what I do. All right, let's go from one Davis to another, and Jamin Davis of the Washington football team at 13. This is Bogman's tier 3, by the way. Eric Kendricks of Minnesota at 14. Micah Parsons in Dallas. Well, by the way, when you're watching Hard Knocks and you get that camera that's down on field level, that, like right there on the sideline, and you're able to watch how fast he is and how quick he is to the football. Dude. It is crazy.
People are like, why did they take Micah Parsons? They needed so many other spots. It's the same reason why they took CeeDee Lamb. He's the best player available.
Take the best talent, worry about it later. But Parsons has been very impressive, and I'm glad you have him in the top 15 because I think he's a top 15 guy too. Corey Littleton in Las Vegas at 16. Isaiah Simmons, Arizona, coming off a good season there. Alex Singleton of Philadelphia, who we were just talking about, I just drafted too. A great story, a guy who's bounced around everywhere and has made the most of the opportunity he got last year. He got a ton of tackles, a lot of solo tackles too. We would have some big double-digit games, and Singleton looks like he is locked in there as a starter again this year. Jamie Collins in Detroit, high on a lot of people's boards. A lot of people like Collins this year in that setup with Detroit, and I can understand why, especially, that defense is going to be on the field, I would say, quite a bit as well. Jerome Baker of the Miami Dolphins, also another player very high on. Levante David, can't go wrong there, 21. And TJ Watt at 22 for Pittsburgh. So take me through this group two. Who stands out to you, Boggs?
This is kind of a risky group here. Davis and Parsons are rookies, but I mean, Washington just in desperate need of someone that can rack up tackles, not 9 yards down the field like John Bostic does. So Jamin Davis hopefully will come in and fix that. Kendricks was huge last year. I mean, averaged 13 points a game, only played in 11 games. But he did have 3 picks in his 11 games, 69 tackles, 38 solos, just had a huge year. So has to be, I can't put him as an LB1, but as an LB2, I think he's a pretty good value. And then you have risky players. I mean, you have the 2 rookies in Kendricks. Littleton is not that great of a linebacker, but he does rack up tackles when he's out there for Vegas, and they're going to use him a little differently this year as well to put him in better position to get tackles. So I'm excited for him. Simmons had a terrible rookie year in Arizona. That was not on Simmons, though.
Yeah, but Simmons got better as the year went on.
He really did. And,
and a lot of improvements, because that was an adjustment for him because he was not used to playing.
Well, they had him playing safety. They had him playing linebacker. They had him playing all over the place. And then they said he doesn't know what he's doing. Right. They took him off the field. Like, he got screwed with too much. I think this year they know, and they're pushing Jordan Hicks way down their depth chart where they should trade him. They're not getting great offers. I mean, the Steelers only had to give up a 6th-round pick to get Joe Schobert. So, it's going to be Hicks, but before Hicks, he's going to be 3rd on the depth chart. It's going to be Collins, who they drafted, and it's going to be Isaiah Simmons, who they spent.
I said, it was the second half of that year. I thought he was impressed. I thought he showed you why.
I expect him to have an enormous season.
Yeah, that's the guy for me that I think moves up. And you're right. The beginning was not good last year, but the end was good enough that my lasting imprint was like, yeah, Simmons did okay there at the end. But you're right.
I just remember watching him in that Seattle game. That I think it was a Thursday night game or a Monday night game. It was a night game for sure. But I was just like, good Lord, who is the monster in the middle of the field here?
I know exactly the game you're talking about. I remember it was Simmons.
I was like, God, I don't remember him being that big, but he just looked bigger than everyone, and he was racking up tackles in that game. So,
all right, you got 3 more guys in the top 25, so take me through those guys.
Yeah, well, real quick, I mean, Collins, underrated, kind of difficult, but they improved that defensive line, so I think he's going to rack up more tackles. Levante David is a consistent guy. TJ Watt, you're going to go higher in big plays, and if he's a defensive end, he is one of your top picks, but he qualifies at linebacker. Right. The other guys that I have here, Jalen Smith, Olakun, and Kenneth Murray here, and I think it's important to mention these guys. Number one, first, Jalen Smith. I had Jalen Smith as a top 10 guy before all of this snap count nonsense that is going on in Dallas right now. They signed Keanu Neal, who was playing safety. You said they're going to move him to linebacker. Didn't make a lot of sense to me because they had Jalen Smith. They drafted Micah Parsons. They still have Leighton Vander Esch. And, and here comes Keanu Neal as well. But Jalen Smith is now 4th on that depth chart. He will not finish the year. One of 2 things. He either will not finish the year 4, or he will not finish the year on Dallas. One of those 2. So he will be gone. He's too talented to stay on the bench. I can't imagine that they keep him there. But Parsons is impressing. Neal is 2nd according to everything that they've been saying. So Leighton Vander Esch had some injury stuff, is after him, and Jalen Smith is 4th on the list. They're going to mix all those guys in, but Smith is kind of the odd man out as it stands right now. So I did drop him significantly in my rankings. Olakun is super underrated. Dude makes plays all over the place. 3 sacks last year, 4 forced fumbles, a couple picks, a fumble recovery. He knocks down some passes and he racks up tackles. And Atlanta's defense is not great, as you mentioned many times, Joe. But Olakun is a guy that will rack you up stats at least. And then the last guy on this list, Kenneth Murray, I mean, far be it from me to give praise to Oklahoma players, but this is a guy that plays downfield, another dude that got much, much better as the season went on, and I expect him to take a big jump this year.
You know, when Van Der Esch came back last year for Dallas, that's when they started to play a little bit better. And it was funny, too. I don't know if you noticed this, but it seemed like the signal caller on the field was Micah Parsons in preseason. So
I would not be surprised if he gets the dot.
I saw him calling plays, and I was like, okay, well, there you go. Like that was kind of, I wasn't expecting that, and it's rare you see that as a rookie. But you know what?
Like the Hall of Fame game, LV was like, "You're trying to make every play, dude. You got to make your plays." He's like, "I'm young. I'm supposed to make every play," which excites me. I mean, he's gonna get smoked in some spots, but he's gonna put himself in good positions. Man, I mean, he's an incredible athlete, dude.
Yeah. I'm glad you had him in the top 15 because he's in mine as well. All right, let's get to this last group here, the defensive backs. Jamal Adams was an absolute wrecking ball last year when he came back healthy. Talk about changing. The Seattle defense was so bad last year, historically bad.
How bad was it?
It was so bad that, they were on an all-time awful pace that they were going to shatter all these records. And then Jamal Adams comes back. He starts sacking guys left and right. What did he finish with, 8 last year? I'm trying to remember.
Last season, he ended up with, let me get to it here.
I gotta tell you, he was just incredible, and I had a lot of shares.
9.5 sacks.
9.5. That's where he was. Okay,
no interceptions.
Well,
he was their best defensive lineman as safety.
He certainly was. Budda Baker, who I had a ton of shares of last year, also tremendous. And then Jeremy Chin, who's now moving to safety full time. Who I'm a huge fan of this guy, and I was a big fan last year. I wish I had more shares last year because I remember watching some interviews with this guy. Go, man, this guy's really sharp. I like him as a player. He's really intelligent. I think this guy's football IQ is off the charts. And that Carolina defense, and you and I talked about it quite a bit last year when we did shows together, that Carolina defense, such a young unit. And we said, give them time. They're very athletic. They'll figure it out. They're very green. They make mistakes. They get, kind of chewed up sometimes as the second half of a game goes on and the adjustments get made against them and the older quarterbacks are able to find the weaknesses. But I'll tell you what, towards the end of the year, they started to play better. And Carolina, I think a big part of that is because of Jeremy Chin, how good he was. That's a tier for me, but you've got 2 more guys of Landon Collins and Bates from Cincinnati. So it's a really good tier, and these guys are just tremendous players at the top.
Yeah, Collins concerns me a little bit because he's coming off an injury, and Cameron Curl played great for this Washington team last year. But I think, if anything, they would probably drop Collins down and play a little bit of linebacker, a la Tyrann Mathieu and what he does in Kansas City. And he's going to stay on the field and rack up tackles. That's what we know. And Jesse Bates was just, our boy Gary Davenport pumped him up last year, and he delivered for sure. And he is just in that guys that's going to average over 10 points every single game. A couple splash plays. He had 3 picks last year, which is great, but 78 solos, 31 assists, average over 10 points per game. I expect him to keep the pace. And look, if this is your first time doing IDP, you wait on defensive backs. As much as I like Jamal Adams and as much as I like Budda Baker, I'm going to rarely own them because there are so many good defensive backs. There are corners that get picked on. There are safeties that rack up tackles because their middle linebacker isn't that good.
It's the best ratio of them all. I could not agree more.
Yeah, it's the wide receivers. If you're comparing things, defensive linemen are going to be your running backs. There's going to be a couple good ones, and it's going to be tough to replace them after that. Quarterbacks are equal to linebackers. They get a bunch of points, but there's a decent amount of them. And then wide receivers are absolutely your defensive backs here. There are many, many corners that I have ranked higher than a lot of people do. Corners are tougher because safeties rack up the tackles and corners typically don't. If you take a corner, like Bless Austin for the Jets, you can get him unbelievably late. And he's going to be on the number 1 guy for whoever they're playing most of the time. And he's not that great in coverage. So he's going to rack up tackles. Guy's going to catch the ball in front of him. He, knocks him down. That's a tackle. That's some points for you. So that's exactly what you want.
All right, the next tier here is John Johnson in Cleveland, who I love that Cleveland defense this year. They're going to be terrific. Jabril Peppers of the New York Giants. Then the guy who ends up on all my teams because I wait on defensive pack every single year, Jordan Poyer. Ooh-wee. Boggs, I love me some Jordan Poyer, man. The guy hits. He's a lock for 100 tackles. I just love the guy. And Antoine Winfield at number 9. So that's your 6 through 9 in this tier. But Poyer's that guy for me, dude. Every year I look and I don't know. I'm such a mark for him. And it's because he's consistent too.
Yeah, and John Johnson is like the one Cleveland player that's not Myles Garrett that is going to stay on the field every day. They're so deep they can rotate pretty much every position.
Yeah.
But Johnson's going to be out there every play. Poyer is exactly what you said he is, Joe. He's a dude, that is going to, you look at his stats last year versus Budda Baker. It was 0.36 difference per game in Budda Baker's favor. So Jordan Poyer is right in that neighborhood, and he doesn't have to make big plays. He does. He had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 picks last year, but he doesn't need to make those because, like you said, he racks up over 100 tackles every single year. Antoine Winfield was great too last year, and he's just getting better. His instincts are getting better. He's going to make more plays this year too, and Tom Brady and that offense are going to set him up to make plays. JPP is going to be putting pressure on that quarterback. They're going to be throwing up some ducks. Winfield's going to be coming down with it. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Minka Fitzpatrick, who actually is from my hometown there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he actually grew up in Old Bridge. Well, I'm originally in Brooklyn, but my parents moved out to Jersey. But Minka was an Old Bridge kid in Jersey. Number 10 here on his list. And boy, talk about a guy who's always in the right place at the right time. You got to love Minka Fitzpatrick there. Marcus May of the Jets at 11. Logan Ryan of the Giants at 12. Still a solid player. Malcolm Jenkins still getting it done at number 13 for the New Orleans Saints. Von Bell from the Cincinnati Bengals at 14. Kari Willis, Indianapolis at 15. And Kevin Byard at Tennessee, who I'm a big fan of Byard. I think he's a really good player. But Minka is always that guy for me that, I know you're the Steelers guy. I don't have to tell you, but he's a fun player to watch. But when you're looking at this tier, does that kind of cloud your judgment a little bit because he makes those big, as you say, splash plays, right? Those big moments. Is he still the best value here you can get in this tier?
Well, Minka Fitzpatrick is definitely a specific type of a player. He's still definitely a DB1 to me, and I have no problem taking him as my first. But he is a guy that is going to have swings and misses on your team. And some safeties are like that. More free safeties are like that. Strong safeties tend to rack up more tackles, right? So Minka can sit back and make a play and get a pick six or, force a fumble or rack up a bunch of tackles on a team that is passing well against Pittsburgh, right? But since he's more free, there are games where the linebackers are taking care of business. The passing game isn't that great. And he's not going to do that much. He'll get you like 3 tackles or something like that. So he is more of a swing and miss, which is why he is in my third tier, but I have no problem making him my first. But if I do take him and I need another defensive back, I'm going to make sure that guy is a rack up tackle guy, and I'm not going to take 2 swings. I'm going to have one solid guy and Minka to win me a week.
All right, let's continue on for the next tier here from 17 to 20. We've got Malcolm Butler, who, because people do throw at him, he gets points.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you have those shutdown corners, they don't always, get a lot of balls going their way. Therefore, it's hard for them to score. Malcolm Butler's kind of guy they might throw on. And
yeah, Jalen Ramsey is just not going to be high on any list because he doesn't get thrown at. And so he doesn't make many tackles or picks because he is so dangerous. And I'm sure eventually we will find a way to incorporate that into IDP scoring. There's just not a way for us to do it.
It's like a shutout or something, or what I mean, like the recept, when they have the targets or receptions, allowed or something like that.
And maybe you get
fun,
minus
like
one per target or something, or minus a half per target, and that way, some of these guys start to lose points. But you'd have to do something else too, like fewer than 3 targets and you get a bonus or something. So
yeah, I mean, if you got that for a shutdown corner.
You got to incorporate snap percentage and stuff like that too. So it's just difficult. That's all.
It is, but I think you're onto something. I think that's the next step because you want to reward the great defensive player, out there in the secondary who, like the old Revis Island days where the guy just, no one throws the ball that way because it's just useless. He's just a shutdown corner. There's got to be a better way. But until then, Malcolm Butler is still very relevant. Marlon Humphrey is another guy. In fact, I just drafted him before the show in that IDP league I was in. Trevon Diggs from Dallas and Kareem Jackson fill out the top 20 here. So still some value, but like you said, defensive back is deep, so you've got some options.
Yeah, and, this is, the top 3 here are corners, and it's because they're on teams that get thrown at just a ton. Now, look, you remember Peanut Tillman, right, Joe?
No, sure.
All the forced fumbles and stuff. Marlon Humphrey had 8 last year. 8. I mean, Peanut Tillman did have 10 in 2012. He finished playing in 2015, but he never had more than 6 in a season outside of that. So a guy that's known as a forced fumble guy had 10, and Marlon Humphrey's got a lot of football left in him. So he is going to make those type of plays, and he gets a decent amount of tackles. Trayvon Diggs just had a rough year last year. He targeted a bunch, only played in 12 games, but averaged over 9 points a game, which is rare in this section. Malcolm Butler, like you mentioned, gets targeted a bunch. And Kareem Jackson, I have him here more because in some formats, specifically Yahoo, I think maybe in Fantrax as well, he still qualifies as a corner, even though he's playing mainly safety and racking up tackles. But if you do need a corner, there are less corners that are good. So, getting one that qualifies, a safety that qualifies a corner is a big boost.
All right, so there you have it. Those are Bogman's tiers and rankings for the D-line, the linebackers, and the defensive backs. And again, we're going to be doing this show every week, and what we'll do is we'll highlight the great performances from the week before on the IDP show. We're also going to look ahead at some of the really key matchups, some streamers. We'll talk streaming defenses as well, and we'll get Bogman's rankings too every week going into the guys who are really set up for success potentially in certain games if you're streaming those players. So if you are playing IDP this season, or even just thinking about it, this is the show for you. But after this one, you gotta be at least a pro level subscriber to Fantasy Pros. So go take care of that now, and go take care of it the right way. Go to fantasypros.com/offers. Again, that's fantasypros.com/offers. Just $10 get you upgraded to the Hall of Fame subscription. All you got to do is deposit $10 on FanDuel, DK, Underdog, one of our friends in the fantasy industry. When you do that, you get that $65 value of the Hall of Fame. You get all the amazing draft tool stuff from the Draft Wizard, like the Draft Assistant, the cheat sheet creator. And guess what? You get to spend quality time with me and Boggs talking defense. So for all of you lunatics out there, this is going to be the show for you, I could tell you. Boggs, this was so much fun, dude. I'm so happy to be doing this with you this year, and we're going to try to change the world, one defensive player at a time. You on board, baby?
I'm on board. Let's go.
All right, let's go. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Bogman Sports and follow me at Joe Pisapia 17. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Scott Bogman, I'm Joe Pisapia. We'll see you next time, kids.